Roll call.
Okay. Mr. Bordenero,
Here.
Mr. Fernandez, Mr. Grady,
Here.
Mr. Holmes, Mr. Lomaglio,
Here.
Mr. Paradis.
Here.
You have a quorum?
Thank you. Public comments? Approval of the February 9th meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 9th, 2021 regular meeting.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
New business. Jerry, how about reading it?
Do I want the red light on here or not?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Move to appropriate $15,400 from the state federal grants revenue account to the regional health services expenditure account to remit a portion of the coronavirus relief funds the town received in December 2020 in accordance with the state of Connecticut Office of Policy and Management.
Second.
Discussion? Oh, that's great. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, our favorite thing now. Let's discuss the 2021-22 budget. Okay, guys, where do you want to go?
Aren't we discussing this tomorrow night?
We could have a quick discussion. Any ideas, or we just wait for tomorrow night? What do we got? Any statements to make or anything?
I think I feel comfortable with what you came at us with. This is a good start.
Anybody else?
May I ask a question? Did everybody get my email? Tim had called me with a question and I replied to everybody just to be aware.
I haven't been home today, so.
Jerry's been golfing.
It was sent, it would have been sent early this morning.
I didn't see it.
And then I guess, Tim, did that answer, at least address your question?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Okay, good. Let's just drop it.
So what's the process now?
Process for what?
We are not discussing the budget tonight?
No, we figure tomorrow's the work night, so we can start working on the budget tomorrow night.
Okay.
But if you guys have any ideas of where you want to go on the budget, put your thoughts together. Tomorrow's the night that we start discussing it. We got the mayor coming in with the council on Webmaster from 7 to 7:30. Then are we going to adjourn, start a new meeting?
Yes, you will.
Okay, now that joint meeting, who runs it?
The idea would be that you would, and you guys would sit up there just so that we can immediately move into the next meeting. Just logistically, it's easier.
Okay, sounds great.
Well,
Just so
they,
you want to basically wait till we get the input from the council? and we'll go
Yeah, I
from
think that's the best.
Okay.
Let's get some input from the council.
will they be here, Kevin, or are they virtual?
They have the option of coming in person or doing it virtual. It's their discretion.
Okay.
I hope the council could come with some ideas on what direction we're gonna go on the budget. Obviously, we'll give them the respect, listen to their ideas and put in consideration.
The only other thing I would say, Sam, is that on the, I don't know if more, people are still struggling, with respect to tax increases. So if we could minimize it as much as possible. I know at one time we even talked about zero again this year. There's other things too. I mean, if we had better information on, the Berlin High School project, with the quote, maybe we could use some of that towards the capital. Even if we said $800,000 to do the blankets, maybe we could apply $1 million of that to the, but I don't know the timing of it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And then we don't even know the timing of any potential federal funds that we get also. Right?
Well, hopefully, I was saying earlier tonight, the House was expected to vote, if not today, then tomorrow. A lot of it, I guess, had to do with just logistics of actually putting together the Senate bill out with all the amendments, getting it to the House. President's expected to sign it. So hopefully we would know, we're supposed to know, I guess, by the end of this week, the intent is to have it signed. Once the money is doled out, the legislation as written says that the states have 30 days to distribute it. And that the bill actually lays out what every community in the country gets, and specifically said states don't have the discretion to adjust those numbers. So
They do?
they do not.
They do.
Yeah.
And our new mill rate is 1.42. Is the projected.
Once
projection.
you vote and adopt, which I'm sure you will, the
Yeah.
reduction in the health
Off of
insurance.
the different budgets. So we're looking at, to get to zero, we'd have to cut about 3.4 million, approximately 3.36 million to get to zero. So if we have the high school project, we have the federal money coming in, and we're close.
Well, keep in mind, the federal money is intended to deal with coronavirus impact. As previously written, and I'm waiting to get the final word, but as was previously written, this is the first time that they are allowing it to offset revenue shortfalls. So it could be brought into the current budget, for example, to deal with the interest rate hit or Parks and Rec revenue because programs were shut down, those kinds of things. But it is intended to offset. It's not intended, just like the Board of Ed grants that they receive, it's not intended to supplant other spending. I'm curious to see, the Treasury last year through December 30th had given a directive that all public safety salary and benefits, as well as medical, which could be health district, could be VNA, can be counted as coronavirus money. So when OPM distributed the population-based grant, the second one they gave to the town, right at the end of the year, we could identify, for example, police salary and benefits were well beyond the $154,000 we received. So we were completely covered there, and that was their intent. That expired December 31st. That was the Treasury direction. We obviously have a new Secretary of Treasury Department. So I'm waiting to see if that guidance carries through. I expect once the legislation is passed and the information is known, Martin Heft, who's the acting undersecretary, has been very good at assembling a Zoom meeting for all finance directors across, not just towns, but not-for-profits, health districts, et cetera. So he's very good at being able to lay out the rules so I'm expecting that we'll know more.
I mean, for example, Kevin, if you say the town gets $2 million, I don't think you find $2 million worth of COVID-related stuff, right?
If they continue with the directive that salaries and benefits from the police department, the VNA, and health district expenses would count towards it, then we would easily surpass that. And obviously we had budgeted for that, but they specifically, the former treasurer.
So that would help if we applied it to our budget, that would help us consider.
Exactly.
I have the feeling that there's a lot of people out there really hurting. Whatever we got to do to get to zero, I think we're just going to have to bite the bullet this year and see what we can come up with. We worked it out last year, and ultimately everybody got what they wanted at the end with the capital plan and everything else. Maybe we just have to try and use that approach again this year, cut as much as we can and then readdress it when we know what the exact numbers are. That'll buy us the time we need, and we can work from there. I mean, if that $2 million could be used for police salaries and things like that, would it include equipment?
It would actually, what the Treasury guidance gave at the end of last year was salary and benefits only.
Okay.
But our
But
salary
that
and
would free
benefits.
up money to be
are
able
the
to
same.
use in other areas. So,
Do you have any understanding of, and I keep hearing things that some pieces of this package go out 3-4 years?
That I don't know. The last I heard, and I haven't seen all the modifications from the Senate, but the last I knew was it was end of 2021. Money had to be used for this particular municipal grant. I have yet to see anything definitive on the Board of Ed, on the education piece of it. I know there's an additional education funding piece. The mayor at the last council meeting made reference to a phone call he received from Representative Larson. So I would assume that was probably based on the House version, given the timing and how the Senate has debated it. So I don't know if any of that changed. I believe the mayor, if I'm not mistaken, said that Representative Larson referenced about $800,000 for the Board of Ed.
yeah, that was the number we used.
Yeah. So, and I would assume, obviously, it's Representative Larson, so I would assume that's a good number, based on at least what the House passed. Knowing that the Senate made modifications, I didn't hear anything or read anything about substantial state and local modifications. There's a lot about unemployment, a lot about who would get the $1,400 checks, but I didn't hear much about the Senate modifying state and local, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just may not have garnered as much attention. Arosh, have you had any conversations with the mayor or anything since then about the number? Have you heard anything that you're aware of from Representative
No.
Larson?
Nothing. We should get something in the next couple of days, something in print. I like to see as soon as this is passed.
I would love, I don't know if it's possible to get to zero. Try to do the best we can. This is on that. We'll do the best we can, but I would love to hear tomorrow night from the council, the whole council. If they have any ideas, because I would imagine the council would want zero. I just hope that it doesn't become like the other meetings of the past where they just give us fluff. I think this is the time that we get some specifics. Because if, let's just say, for example, if we don't get it to a zero, we get it to, 5, 10, 6 cents, whatever. And then the council's gonna come in and just randomly cut something without any considerations like they've done in the past. Just give the town manager a number, or the Board of Education number, and say that's what we want. I think tomorrow is the time for the town council to lay their cards on the table and say, well, this is what I want. Give us a specific cut on the Board of Education. Give us a specific cut on the town if they want to cut the town side, and then we can build from that. I just hope the council doesn't come to us and just waste their time with some rhetoric like they've done for three budget seasons. I'm looking for specifics from the council tomorrow night. Then we can take it from there at 7:30, take their specifics of what we think about it, and maybe a week later vote on it or whatever. I don't expect to do any votes on the budget tomorrow night, but I think we need some time to really mull it over, what we discussed tomorrow night, and then come back and revisit it, maybe do some votes at that night. So I don't expect any votes to be taken tomorrow night in the budget. I think tomorrow night's just strictly gonna be a work night, throw ideas out and think about it over the weekend.
Well, if you have agreement on anything, like for example, the health insurance, you could take the vote, get it out.
Oh, we can
move
get
on.
little stuff like that,
If
but I
there
mean,
are specific things that you get it.
right, but I mean, I think tomorrow night's just gonna be strictly a work night. Is that okay, guys?
Yeah. Are we planning on taking the capital budget and just kind of sitting on that until we know what we got?
Yeah, I think we just
It's
wait.
up to you guys.
I think-
I mean, I don't see a disadvantage in doing that.
I think let's discuss it tomorrow night. Let's have a work night. We'll have the whole board here. Mark's not here. We'll have the whole board, have a real discussion. I think the key thing is to listen to what the council has to say. I mean, I would imagine this council's got some ideas here too. I would hope they have some ideas because they've got the budget at the same time as we got the budget. So hopefully they've looked through the budget. They've got the Board of Education budget at the same time we've gotten the Board of Education. So hopefully they've looked through the Board of Education budget. And hopefully they come with some ideas and no fluff. I mean, this is the opportunity for two boards to get together tomorrow night, work out some type of agreement. We think about it over the weekend. We come here the following week and take votes. This is not an opportunity to make any rhetoric or say like last year, they said we support education, we support public safety. That's fine. We all support education on the Board of Finance. And we all support public safety, but let's get right down to the nitty gritty. What are we willing to cut in education? What we're willing to cut in public safety? I mean, are we gonna make some cuts? Are the council in favor of taking the whole capital items out? Are they not? I mean, these are the things we need to discuss with the council, because ultimately, if we take the capital out, we have to wait for the council to vote on in the fall like they did last year and give us, then we can vote on the capital. So ultimately, we both have to work together because they need us and we need them. So we got to work together. So hopefully they'll come in, not give us any political rhetoric tomorrow. Let's just talk
What's the
straight talk.
exact, Kevin, what's the exact number on the capital?
1,513,000.
1 and 5, that's what I thought it was.
So I mean, that's where I'm at. Anybody else, anything else? Okay, let's discuss the hearing. Mr. Delaney?
The plan right now is to continue meeting in person at Berlin High School. It's been confirmed with the Board of Ed. It will be live streamed on the BHS YouTube channel. They actually have a group of students who work with an instructor. They do a really good job. The Board of Ed has been happy. They've live streamed not just Board of Ed events, but sporting events, ceremonies, other things. It seems to have been received well. We obviously don't have equipment like this sitting in the high school auditorium, but they do have equipment that they can use. The state guidelines currently and I don't expect them to change because these are expanding about a week out from the 30th of our meeting, limits the indoor attendance to 100 people. There's obviously 6 members of the board, assuming you all attend in person. 7 of the council, I'm assuming they will attend. With presenters and the like, you're looking at about 20 to 25 people. So one of the things I'm going to propose is that department heads and town staff, other than those who maybe live in town and want to participate as citizens, but if it's just town staff, they reside in the upper corner. And then the Board of Ed staff resides typically down in an area. I'm going to ask if they don't mind watching live stream so that more of those remaining seats can be available for residents who want to come in, ask questions and do things. I don't think most of the town staff will object to watching it rather than attending in person. I'm certainly not going to limit anybody from doing that, but just in an attempt to provide as many residents and taxpayers the opportunity to come into the auditorium, because obviously if we hit 100, we should really follow the state regulations, considering we are a municipality of the city. So that's one of the plans, but it is planned to go to the high school. Obviously, if anybody has any objection, you can certainly participate remotely. If you feel it's unsafe or just not wise to do it, you can certainly do that.
You do it first come, first serve. Dismisses or you some sort of sign in, site, just spot.
The plan was first come, first serve. Typically, we don't have your issue breaking 100.
You don't get 100 people there. It would have to be really luck to get 100 people there. So I don't think we're even going to come close to it.
Sorry.
Earlier in the day on your proposed calendar, there's a senior center thing. I assume that's not going to happen.
That's canceled. It's canceled for 2 reasons. One, we don't want to encourage congregating seniors, even though many of them, probably most of them, have been vaccinated. The second reason is because there's actually a vaccine clinic going on at the same time at the senior center. So people like me walking in who haven't been vaccinated is just inviting problems.
Well, we can go and give us some greedy pigs.
We can certainly go. We just won't be doing a section.
Well, plus they could do the virtual if they want.
Absolutely, and that's what Tina said, is they can all participate virtually
Yeah,
as
they
well.
will.
So we've canceled
Maybe
that.
they could even set something up at their little facility there. Falling kind of thing with a TV in the room.
The plan would be for people to have the opportunity in person, but also to provide the opportunity, the Board of Ed does this at their meetings where people can send questions in. There's a slight delay, obviously, but my intent is I would probably be there with my laptop, and as the questions come in, I can relay them to you. That's kind of the plan.
Questions or statements?
Well, if it's a long.
Because it's not a question and answer period, it's a hearing.
Well, but there's opportunities for people to ask questions. They have in the past, clarifying questions.
Okay.
Geez, after March 19th, it isn't like 50%.
They've limited it for large gatherings.
I went to church this past week.
Did you really?
It was a couple hundred people.
Would St. Paul's?
And this was the directive from the Board of Ed that they sent with 100 people.
We don't normally get that many people.
Yeah. I mean,
We'd be
kind of a nice problem. The second thing to bring up is typically, well, by charter, within 2 days, you then have to vote on the budget you will send to the council. Historically, actually, I think every year, I'm not sure you've made any changes as a result of that session. So there's a couple of options. One, I can notice a meeting immediately following the session where you can adjourn and then meet. We did that a couple of years ago at McGee.
We did, yes.
And you met, you voted, and that was what went to the council, and you were done with your part, and the council has 5 business days to deal with it. Typically, they'll take it up the following Tuesday at their next meeting, which is why we kind of schedule it the way we do. The other option is, unfortunately, I have a medical conflict, Wednesday and Thursday. So we could do Wednesday night, the 31st, but we have to do it virtual, just to be able to make it available. So you don't have to decide tonight, it's just something to think about, because obviously we have meetings over the next 2 weeks. You just have to notice if you intend to take the vote that night, because just as at McGee, many people stayed to watch your vote.
You did. Enjoyed it.
Arosh, do you have anything you want to add about annual budget hearing or anything, any concerns or input?
No, I'll wait until the council speaks and you take action. I'm preparing for March 30th to present the budget with Brian. And this is my first time around. So from what I understand, I actually will be presenting your budget, whatever you recommend, right? Not the budget that I recommend. So
It'll be our budget.
Yeah, we just look
Yeah,
at
I
it,
know.
it'll be our budget, that's right, Sal.
I'm just differentiating between what we submitted versus what's going to come out of the Board of Finance.
You're assuming there'll be
So-
differences.
Just reading about what happened in the past.
We're gonna try to change that tomorrow night. If the council comes in with really a positive attitude, we can change that whole direction tomorrow night. It's all on them now.
Well, I think both parties have to work together.
Right, but it's on
It's
them.
not all on anybody, it's all on all of us.
It's on them to come with an idea. We have ideas, they need to share their ideas. Okay, your update, Mr. Delaney.
I'll just hit on a couple of points and then open it up to any questions anybody might have. First, I just want to, the pension fund, one of the things I had listed on here is one active with approximately $600,000 payout in February. That payout was made this week. So that person is now fully retired, has her money, and the liability is gone. So another
Was she
person that
happy?
we have paid out,
Was she happy?
I believe. I think she was very happy. January she retired, she's probably been happier to pick up $500,000. The only other thing I will point out, the chairman had asked me a question about the wash bay. Wash bay was one of those projects I had listed when we said there's about $20 million of approved and funded projects. And the PBC has been reviewing a number of scenarios. There were obviously some delays in just even being able to observe other communities in the area who had put in a wash bay. Just because of COVID, they just weren't able to get in and look at some things for a few months. But they are now getting ready to go out to bid. They are planning to go out to bid with a design build setup. So basically you would hire someone to do the full thing. They would design, build, manage the whole process. We've had some good luck with this in some places we've done it. The senior center renovations were the most recent example. The nice thing is when you get a good vendor who does all of that, it's a nice coherent process. They've got the design, they know exactly what they're trying to do as long as we agree with that setup, which obviously the PBC and facilities would have input, as well as Public Works as users of it. And then, they know what they're building, they know why, and what's going on there, and they've evaluated the whole building. So that is the plan. Right now, they're looking to go out to bid with a touchless system, recognizing, of course, that that could be more expensive than traditional touch system, get out of the vehicle. So they're going to see where the bids come back in and evaluate. So if that exceeds the spending or the funding that's in place, then that's a decision. If there's additional funding, or they have to use an alternative.
So they
approach.
stay in the truck or something in the wash, it's like a car wash.
Like a car wash.
Oh, I like that idea. We get served.
It's desirable. Some of our surrounding communities have tried to do the same thing. When the bids came back in, they elected to go with the manual approach. So I would be very happy if it came in with the funding and it was touchless. I think that's wonderful for everybody. I'll be candid, I would be very surprised if that happens. But nobody is going in blindly thinking, well, that can't possibly happen. The PDC is aware, Public Works is aware that that may happen. But the project is moving along,
Fantastic.
the expectations that happen. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions. Oh, actually, sorry, one final thing. It's not on my status report, but it is on the budget actuals on the revenue. If you look, there is a substantial increase this month in refunds of expenditures. That is, the town paid out of Department 61 just shy of $160,000 for the air quality study that was done. It was a 3-part study, comprehensive of all 5 schools. The board used some of their ESSER 2 available grant funding to apply for and receive reimbursement for that work. The board recognizes that as grant revenue, so the town, it then is transferred to the town to basically reimburse Department 61 for that expense. We recognize it as a refund of expenditure because can only recognize the grant in one place. When we go to consolidate, we double count the grant. So in case you had any questions, it's close to $160,000 growth, but that money is sitting there. Our intent or our goal with that is once the PBC has had a chance to digest the feedback from the study and evaluate what could and should be done in the short term to deal with immediate issues, and what should be dealt with longer term for the more broad HVAC project, to dedicate that money, and it may very well be more than that, but take that money and use it for some of those short-term items that are deemed immediate needs to deal with air quality issues. That's the plan, that's the intent, but obviously in order to do that, we would come back first to the council and then to the board, asking to do a non-budgeted appropriation of that money. But if you have any questions on that, that's why that increase was so substantial month over month.
I did have a couple other revenue questions.
Sure.
Couple lines down below that, there's other receipts. At year to date is $240,000, we only budgeted $10,000. Tell me what that is.
That's the money that came back to us when we ultimately sold Farmington property in Newport. And remember that you had to front $235,000 for the Newport share as the financing was working through with the COVID pandemic. There were delays. So we did a non-budgeted appropriation, and then when they gave us the check, that came back in so that when the year ends, that operating will close out and replenish the general fund, unassigned fund balance with that money.
I just wanted to make sure it was a one-time item and that it wasn't something wrong with the budget that we should be considering when we look at this year's budget.
Not unless we're going to start selling more property.
Next couple lines down from that, other general revenue budgeted at 250, zero actual year to date.
That's the bond premium. We haven't bonded and don't intend.
Yeah. And up above in the state and federal grant area, federal and state grants, budgeted 40,722, actual 220,620.
Biggest driver of that is the $154,000, the second coronavirus grant we received in December. That's the one you just appropriated 15.4 to pay the Central Connecticut Health District for 10% of it. That's the biggest single driver. We've had a couple of other smaller state grants. The second biggest one in that group is reimbursement of the competitive school security grant. You recall that you had appropriated, I believe it was 2 budgets ago, about $539,000. With that, there was a lot of work done at the schools, cameras, access controls, the bollards in front of BHS. So the concern was if a vehicle came down the hill, they could actually, prior to the bollards, they could actually drive right into the front of the building. And then the other big thing from that project was there were actually dead zones in the basement of BHS where police or fire could go down there and the radio would actually have dead spots. So transponders were put throughout the basement so that wouldn't happen in the event of an emergency. There were a couple of other smaller things, but those were the predominant areas. That was reimbursement of some of those expenditures from Homeland Security.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, guys?
The other thing is on, we identified primarily risks for current budget year. You can take a closer look at opportunities, put some numbers on there. Seriously, there's areas where you could, probably get a little.
There are some.
I guess I'd just like to get a flavor of what you're thinking, based on 8 months and already through the year. But you don't have to do that tonight. I'm just curious.
Yeah. The biggest area, and I'm still waiting to see where we kind of finish out in terms of backfilling, are vacant positions. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's not a 1-for-1. Sometimes we have positions, for example, we have a planner. However, we have a position, as we have an interim, we did backfill the zoning enforcement officer. Because it's just impossible for one person to do both of those and the different lawsuits we have. We have the golf course director position is vacant. And the golf course position is vacant, and but we are filling with a maintainer position, blue collar out on the golf course, because that is a need. So it's kind of how everything settles out is why there's a bit of a delay there.
I had a question here on the Board of Education, COVID grants, for example. when they spend money against it, right? Where do the actuals actually reside? If they're not showing anything against, the grant itself, they reside someplace and then in their general fund actuals and then they transfer, or do they set up a separate account that tracks it separately? I guess I'm just curious.
Yeah,
because
sometimes it does go through their budget first.
So it could be either or is what you're saying possibly.
Yeah, I mean, especially on the special ed stuff, special ed excess costs grant, usually they wait to see what the actual amount is. I think, on the grant sheet, it shows it's like 813,000. I think they know the amount right now. I think it's like 15 or something. But what they'll end up doing is, once they know what the amount is, they will take the same amount out of their budget, free up the budget funds, and that line can zero out. But I mean, yeah, I think they do the same thing with some of the other grants as they determine eligibility, whether or not, especially when you got one or two other grants, that the same expenditures could get charged to.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so adjourn,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, cool, shortest period in history.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.